Yes, sir. What's your name?
Rusty Black.
Hey, Rusty. How you doing?
Doing very well. How are you,
Good,
sir?
good.
I had kind of an application of the apologetics question.
Uh-huh.
So obviously we prepare ourselves. I think most people in here, you don't really have a whole lot of atheists. We're pretty much believers. Not so much your family. You know, you pray for your family. You have a lot of opportunities to talk to them.
Uh-huh.
And maybe not somebody that you see every day at work, but the passerby.
Right.
Obviously we need to prepare ourselves, read, learn from people that do this for a living. How do you draw the line between, we took a trip and we were talking about you, we were driving, you have a good attitude when you talk to people that are illogical, they have these illogical views. How do you draw the line between winning an argument and reaching the end goal of pointing people to Christ? Like, you know, you're talking to somebody and they kind of take it in a bad way, or you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you decide? Because you talk to people all the time that are just random crew people.
Yeah, I think
not drive that wedge in.
I think that, first of all, Greg Koukl, my friend, has a great book on this called Tactics. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but it deals with all of these interactions you have with people and what questions you should ask and how you should deal with people when they get upset and all this. And one of the things that you might want to say if someone gets upset was just say, well, first of all, the question I think you should ask when people get upset is, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? Because this seems to be more emotional than it needs to be if there are not emotional reasons for you to get upset. In other words, why would you get upset when we're trying to talk about facts as to whether or not God exists? Because there's a whole cadre of implications that flow from the question of whether or not God exists. In fact, let me be very blunt with you in here. Not that I haven't been so far. But I submit to you that a lot of the hostility that Christians experience, and it's mild compared to what they experience in other countries, but a lot of the hostility that Christians experience in America they're experiencing it because there's a new religion in America. And the new religion in America is the religion of sex. It's an old religion resurrected. No pun intended. And what I mean by that is that you notice the battles that we have culturally. They're all surrounding sex, right? Abortion, same-sex marriage, now it's contraception that have to be paid for in the Obamacare and all this. It's all these cultural things. It's all about sex. The University of Nebraska wants to keep Chick-fil-A out of their, or at least some students do, off their campus because the CEO believes in traditional marriage. The reason I'm saying this is because the elephant in the room for many people is not evidence. The elephant in the room is morality and accountability. They don't want there to be a God, and they don't want you, if you're a Christian, to impose your morality on them. That's why there's so much heat. That's why there's so much aggression. That's why people will shout you down and get mad at you, because they think you're going to try and take away something they don't want taken away. That's really the issue. There are so many implications that come from this. It's more political than it is intellectual. Do you guys disagree with that? That's really the elephant in the room. So I think when you're dealing with people on that, if they all get hot and bothered and they get angry with you, you don't want to go there with them. You just want to be calm and say, maybe we can talk another time. I'm sorry I upset you, and then go to somebody else. But Greg Koukl's book is great on this, and I'd highly recommend you get it. Just let me give you a few questions you can ask people when they say things. These are from his book. The first question is, what do you mean by that? Like, for example, Mr. Carpenter asked me the question about evolution. Do you believe in evolution? My first question is, what do you mean by evolution? It means so many different things to so many different people, right? You got to define your terms. Second question is, how did you come to that conclusion? Somebody says evolution is true. Oh, macroevolution is true? What evidence do you have for that position? What's your best evidence, right? Third question is, have you ever considered that the evidence that could be used to point to a common ancestor could equally be used to point to a common creator or common designer? So those three questions, what do you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? Have you ever considered, can help you move a conversation forward. And you can see if a person really has evidence for their position. Many times they don't. They've heard a slogan and they just believe the slogan. And when you press them, and what evidence do you have for that slogan? They don't have any. So I think reading his book, and some of the tactics, by the way, are in the app too, that you can download, the Cross-Examined app. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, these questions you can use for anything. Anything. Parents, you can use them with your kids, right? You can say, hey, your kid calls you one night and says, I'm not going to be home at 11 for curfew. First question should be, what do you mean by that? Second question is, how'd you come to that conclusion? Third question is, if you're not home by 11, you're grounded for 2 weeks. Be right home, Dad. By the way, husbands, never use these, never use these questions with your wife. If she calls you an idiot, don't say, what do you mean by that? She is going to have a list a mile long, especially if you say, how did you come to that conclusion? So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.